This is part 2 of a 2-part podcast.
Have you ever wondered whether a particular book was really good or just so-so, and if you could trust the reviews online? When it comes to books related to permaculture, Permies has a large list of reviews for over 100 books. Perhaps you're considering a book for yourself or a friend, or you're just curious about what's out there. Stop by permies.com/book and take a look at the book review grid and read some honest reviews, and hopefully you'll find the next book to add to your collection.
The thing is that I believe that we need more and more people to get very involved in rocket mass heaters to kind of move it all forward. Because a lot of people are kind of like, they want one, but they don't want to build it at all. It's like an IKEA table would be more than they want to take on. They would want somebody to come and put together their IKEA table as well.
And haven't people put together like a prototype J-tube with cinder block?
Outside in the backyard, yeah, not with cinder block. Never with cinder block.
Well, I mean,
fire brick or clay brick, not brick made out of cement.
Well, I would say that a cinder block is not the thing to have in a permanent system.
I wouldn't even advise it to be a temporary thing that you build in your backyard.
All right. I had just seen things on Permies where people are like, oh yeah, it has its own duct built into it. Just line them up next to one another.
Oh no, I've seen dumb fuckery all over YouTube. And dumb fuckery on Permies, we are pretty good at removing that, but it's like, or at least labeling it as, this is a really bad idea. This is dog shit. Do not do this. This is an example of what not to do.
I would rather see a Dakota stove in somebody's backyard than a cinder block system. But the thing is like, I want to see how rocket mass heaters work. I don't want to dig a hole in my yard. I want to go ahead. I'll just go to Home Depot and pick up a bunch of cinder blocks, and that's how to do it. Yeah, I'd be careful about that sort of thing for sure.
So the thing is that I am convinced that this solves a long list of issues for people directly, and it solves a long list of global issues as well. And so, I mean, rocket mass heaters are just the thing, and to get more people that have an engineering background involved is good, and to get more people that are going to be out there as builders or consultants or anything is a big help. So I just wanted to touch on that for just a second. I would have to say that if you are paying attention to the fire and you keep the belly full, and think about, like, don't let too much air into the system, you can heat your home with a rocket mass heater with half the wood. So if you're not really paying attention, that's fine. You're just going to end up using twice as much wood that day. So you've been dabbling with this, you've been learning that, and it's like, you run fires for a couple of hours, but if you were on top of it more and you optimized and you developed some discipline around it, you would probably be fine with 1 hour of fire per day, maybe even less than an hour. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, I think that sounds right. And actually, I'll even add to that. Yesterday, I wasn't feeling very well, so I wasn't interested in getting up as many times, and I was surprised by how much more wood I used. And I think that was because, I was letting all of the embers practically die out in between. Yeah. So, I think it really did me a disservice, but I was also not feeling very great.
Right.
Yeah.
So you lit the fire. It's like normally I check on it in 15 minutes, but if I didn't come back for an hour, then there'd be no coals left, right. and it would be wide open, and the room would be substantially warmer. But I'd be thinking like, do I want to just cork it and walk away and leave it for the day, or do I want to like get it up a little warmer still?
Right.
And it's a similar sort of a thing with a conventional wood stove, but when you're burning a lot more wood and you got to keep the fire going, or else the whole building gets super cold, you end up having an all-day burn. Like a lot of wood stove people, they have a fire going like almost 24 hours a day. Some of them, they're so passionate about 24 hours a day that they get up once or twice in the middle of the night to build a fire. And it's like, whoa, now that is some serious dedication. Okay. Next up, we have cardboard boxes that contain ripped up pieces of cardboard boxes, and I gotta say that while I don't know, we have that about half the time because somebody just sat down and just started ripping up cardboard boxes and throwing it into a cardboard box. But when we have it, whoever did that, thank you. That is terrific. So like if there's like not quite enough space to add more wood to the fire, grabbing a handful of little cardboard pieces and throwing it in there is awesome.
Yeah, it's a great job for beginner boots.
Yeah.
Hey, we have all this stuff. We're going to be using it over the winter. Let's just take care of this now. And as soon as it's there, you're like, oh, thank goodness, I can get started right away instead of having to start your fire building by ripping up a cardboard box or something like that.
Yeah. It's really convenient.
You can just get right to it. And cardboard is so useful. It's useful throughout the entire burn if you want. It'll revitalize coals. It starts a fire up. It is great for priming the exhaust when you have to deal with a cold plug. There are all sorts of reasons why you want to have extra cardboard sitting around, ready to go.
The next thing I want to bring up is that when putting the sticks in, the sticks that are closer to the barrel tend for me to be bigger, and I think Alexandra was mentioning that she now has adopted that practice as well. Why would you care about whether the bigger sticks are closer to the barrel?
So the hotter a fire is closer to the barrel, and then also you want the smaller sticks at the back because they take less energy and to burn, and so you want your entire feed to burn evenly, and so that it all kind of sinks down at the same rate, and so that's how you distribute the heat.
I like the idea of ending up with an even bed of coals.
Yes.
And so I put the bigger stuff close to the barrel, and then I find that bigger stuff will burn down at about the same rate as the smaller stuff that's away from the barrel. Then when I go to add more sticks later, it's even. I'm not trying to play some weird Tetris game to squeeze, because the wood feed's so small. And if you've only burned up half the wood, you're kind of playing Tetris to get new sticks to fit inside. And it's like, no, this way it's easier. I do want to say that sometimes the sticks will stick out of the top of the wood feed a little bit, and you want to really avoid that. But sometimes it's like, okay, I went and I stuck the sticks in, and I guess that bed of coals was thicker than I thought, and now I got sticks sticking out of the top of the wood feed, which is a bad idea, but it's like, okay, I'm going to make the best of it. So you go in there, and I place the fire bricks to the sides in such a way to try to, reduce the airflow a little bit. We've got that little cork thing we might stick on top of that, stuff like that. But for the most part, every time I put wood in, I want it to be where I can put the bricks entirely over it. And but I don't always get what I want, but usually it's okay. Overall, what you want is to keep all of the fire low. You don't want any of the fire coming anywhere near the opening of the wood feed. And so if you've done a good job, all the fire is low. There's no fire anywhere in the top several inches of the wood. Like the top half of the wood is not burning. So the only wood that's burning is the lower, 25% maybe, the lower 30% of the wood.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. That's what we're all shooting for. It doesn't always happen, but that's kind of like the general goal. And if you can keep the fire low, then every time you add wood and you give it a full belly, the fire stays low. But if the fire starts to come up in any way and you're like doing things to mitigate, it's kind of like it's going to be a sucky fire the whole burn. Like, if you're going to do an hour-long burn, it's like, ugh, it keeps coming up because it's warmed up the wood feed. And now you have a competing chimney.
In those cases, I typically wait until it's back down to embers and coals at the bottom before I refill it again.
Yeah, I do that too.
Yeah.
I do that too. Yeah. So, all right. Let's see.
I think you did have some strategies for keeping the fire low, like adding in cardboard at the base in order to ensure that it stays low, and then also minimizing the intake so that there's a stronger draw to, again, keep the flames low.
If it's got a full belly, the amount of air between all the sticks is like 15 or 20%. Mm-hmm. And so in order to have the amount of flammage that's going on inside the burn tunnel, it has to draw a certain amount of air, and it starts to really it starts to do the rockety thing. It starts to really whip that air in there and pull it in there. And that strong airflow between the sticks keeps the fire low, mm-hmm. and it keeps it very hot.
Okay, so then your strategy would be to maybe fill the belly a little bit more if it seems like you're getting a competing chimney early on.
Right, but once you start to get a competing chimney, it slows the fire down, and more fire wants to creep up the wood,
right.
Which is bad.
And again, I wouldn't add more fuel in those cases. I'd let it burn down, gotcha. So you have a bit of coals at the bottom, and then that's gonna relatively cool off the wood feed compared to the burn tunnel. Mm-hmm. So put your wood in after you're down to coals and embers at the bottom. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah. One more thing I wanted to add about the full belly is if you stuff it too tight and there's too much friction between the sticks, right. They tend not to fall.
That doesn't happen very often, but when it does, it's kind of funny. It's like
yeah.
So it's like you guys got hung up on yourselves up here. You made this little sculpture that I'm going to now break.
Yeah, one little tap on the top with the fire poker.
Yeah,
and it all falls in.
If it's just a few sticks, but if you do it with the full opening, then your fire goes a bit higher because there's no fuel down below.
Yeah.
So that's something to, in terms of operating it, to be mindful of. You want it full, but not so stuck that it won't move freely.
I think if there's ever fire coming up the sticks, like it starts burning, my go-to every time, first thing I do is I start moving the fire bricks over the fire. Like I try to make it so that there's like I'm going to try to cut maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of the air intake, so it gets more of that going on, which keeps the fire low, and it'll also make sure it never smokes back. But yeah, it's like that's step one, and then step two is exactly what you're saying, Stephen. I'm going to wait till it gets down to coals before throwing any more wood on there, because if the wood feed is warm, you get a competing chimney, and then it just is a sucky burn. And I don't like a sucky burn. I like a good, clean, efficient burn where everything seems to be working correctly.
I feel like I want to kind of add, why do we want it to be...
it's the better one.
Oh, so sorry.
Yeah, I got this.
All right. I think the don't mind.
That was BioRemote 1 that did that, right?
Yes, it was, and maybe I set her up for failure there, but so the main reason why we want the burn to be as hot as possible, we don't want the draw to be weak, is because we want there to be a full clean combustion. And the full clean combustion begins, I think, at 1100 degrees, but I need to confirm that. I know, Paul, you're saying it's more like 1300 degrees. So if you're slow to get that initial temperature up above that full combustion temperature, then you're not fully combusting all of the fuel, all of the gases. And so
I think a big part of why this technology, why this approach is better than conventional wood stoves and is better than masonry heaters in general is because we're going to have a fire in an insulated space. But to have a pathetic little tiny weak fire in an insulated space is just as shitty as running a good fire inside of a conventional wood stove. And so we're going to so we need a big enough fire
but you would
with lots of air and lots of fuel and lots of interaction. And then on top of that, at 1300 degrees Fahrenheit, we start to combust the smoke and the creosote. And so generally we're looking for temperatures that exceed 1300. And so I would have to say that for probably most of the burn, we're probably hovering around 1700 to 1800 degrees Fahrenheit. This is my guess. And this is, I'm gonna say this is a qualified guess. Like my guess probably beats up most people's so-called facts. Does that make sense? I mean, I do this in engineering. I don't know if you do. My guess beats up your facts. And so, but this is my guess, as I think, but that's what we want. At 1300, we begin to burn the smoke and the creosote.
That's why we don't want it to start slowly. We want to get it up to a high temperature as quickly as possible, because the time in between starting the fire and everything below 1100 or 1300 degrees Fahrenheit, that is an inefficient burn. You are not, you're going to have smoke coming out of your chimney. And so you should be able, you need to get your fire burning hot as quickly as possible. And I would say, I know you talked about an insulated versus uninsulated space. Even if you have a rocket running outdoors for an outdoor application, it's obviously not insulated, but you still don't want to be smelling the smoke.
You don't want to be smoking at the neighborhood.
So I don't think it matters.
I mean, whenever you have a whole bunch of smoke, in any case, you're kind of like you're doing it wrong.
Right.
And it's like even if you're just testing something out in your backyard and you have a whole bunch of smoke, I hope you're like, oh, I wish that hadn't have happened. I think I got an F today on my experiment. And so, but yeah, to do experimentation and have it run clean isn't very hard to do, and is pretty important. Getting it to work cleanly, even if it's an experiment. And we do. We run these experiments all the time, and we get nice, clean burns. And that's always the sign you're looking for. My next note is that, and Stephen and I have talked about this many, many times, for this particular rocket mass heater, we did a test years ago. I did a test years ago where I carefully measured all the wood, and we heated this home one winter, and we kept it very warm all winter long, and we used 0.60 cords of wood. But we had nothing on the windows. All the windows were bare, and we didn't use very much cardboard at all. Because why not use the wood? We've got stacks of it out there, and all kinds of other little bits and bobs. And it's kind of like, and so Stephen and I talk regularly about someday we're going to do that test again, and we're going to get it to be
late 2025. I think we can do it this coming year. I really do.
Okay.
And if we have somebody like Alexandra whose main responsibility is taking care of that fire, taking care of the heat and monitoring the temperature and all that.
Yeah.
And having it, would the goal be to see how efficiently you could possibly run it, right?
How little wood is the bottom line. That's probably the easiest way to have a metric. It's like we have 0.6 or whatever. Yeah. 0.60 cords of wood. How can we do better than that is the question. Yeah.
So I'm thinking it should be pretty easy to do 0.20 cords of wood. I mean, because we insulate the windows, and then we do all kinds of other things with the house to make it, a more energy efficient home. And then we've got some ideas about the whole thing about the cardboard and the paper, which wouldn't count. And let's get better at processing the cardboard and paper. And so, because at the end of the year, we actually end up having to take a lot of cardboard into the recyclers because we had more of it than we needed. And it's like, okay, what if we were to get better at hanging on to some of that cardboard and better at using it? Then the next thing is the whole concept of let's take a bunch of our wood crates. We have 50 wood crates. Let's set aside 20, and we'll put a bunch of sticks in them, little short sticks.
Yeah. Things that we pick up off the ground that have fallen off the trees.
Yeah.
Like somebody who has trees in their yard, they would be able to do the same thing.
And let's get better and rather, because right now part of what we're doing is down in the wood shop, all of the blocks of wood and whatnot,
all the offcuts,
that all goes in down there,
in the batch box.
let's bring some of those up here, and I know.
Okay.
But the thing is that in the end, I think it's even plausible that we can finish the winter having burned 0 cordwood. It's plausible. Yeah. See, no, look at the face. Stephen is making a face saying
I'm computing it. Yeah. So we have offcuts from the wood shop. We have branches that have fallen off of trees in the yard. We have junk mail. We have cardboard boxes that things have been shipped here in. I think that's eminently possible.
Yeah.
To go without using any cordwood at all. I mean, that would be tremendous. But I do think it is reachable. Sure.
I mean, it would be a thing. And then, of course, at the same time, I think a major component would be you got to burn it efficiently. You got to.
There's that, yeah. And that's what I meant when I said having somebody who's dedicated to monitoring the heat.
Because if you wander away from the fire and just leave it going, which we all do all the time, then it's like you come back 2 hours later and it's like, oh right, I started a fire, and I left the thing open, and now there's not even a single coal left. It's
and the wood feed has been open. You hadn't plugged it up, so that all that warm air that was generated in the house has now been sucked out of the system.
Well, not all of it. I mean,
a lot.
Basically, my experience is that if I start a fire and then I forget about it and walk away, and I come back let's say 2 or 3 hours later, and oh damn, it's still 3 or 4 degrees warmer in the house than when I started the fire.
Of course, yeah.
And so it's
it's
just less efficient.
Yeah, you were talking about peak efficiency, and that's a way to maintain efficiency.
And so being smarter, around the fire, and being and not just wander away from it will improve the efficiency overall.
That's pretty exciting. Yeah. The idea that we could do that with 0 cordwood at all, and that would be tremendous.
However, I do want to mention you do have something that you call cork, and the cork is a metal plate with a handle and some angle iron, right? In order to plug the opening, and I've never seen something like that being used for any other rocket, and I think it's a clever accessory that you have, but I also know that even if you didn't have a cork, it is still a better performing or more efficient system compared to a conventional wood stove, because similar to water in a P-trap, the rocket has a built-in P-trap. And so you're not going to have as nearly as much air just escaping out of your living space up into your chimney like a conventional stove, unless you're using a damper or something to close that flue. And so even if you forget to put the cork on, it is still operating way more efficiently. It's just not, optimal efficiency with the cork. So I just want to kind of baseline that.
Yeah.
Right. The thing we did several years ago with 0.60 cords of wood, and I think that I'm going to state that using a conventional wood stove in this house, it would be 6 cords of wood each winter. So it's about, it's a tenth. Mm-hmm. But and that was without the cork. The cork was 2 years ago. And so, again, I kind of think that, okay, all these little things, all these little efficiencies add up. Mm-hmm. And then it's possible we can get this down to, 0.20 cords of wood, or maybe even 0, depending on how smart we are about doing it. And it's kind of like, okay, let's be smart. Let's see how well we do if we're smart. And it's like, and we've optimized things. So the cork is a cool thing. And there's other cool things, like, there's those little fans that are on the top right now. One of them's still spinning. And then there's...
it's a thermo fan. They're so cute.
Yeah, they use a little TEG pad in there with the difference of temperature. And
you have two different models because they start moving at different temperatures.
Yeah. So. But the thing is placement of, and then there's like a regular fan sitting on the mast that we turn on and off throughout the day, and depending on this and that and the other thing. And I think that all these little details are helping to make the whole system more efficient, which we never used when we did this test. I don't know, I'm going to say 6 years ago. So when we did that test 6 years ago, maybe it was even 7 years ago, we didn't have the fans on the top. We didn't have the. And the other thing is that we've got other ideas about how to optimize this particular rocket mass heater further, which might be foolish because this is probably the best rocket mass heater in existence. So trying to optimize, but I can't stop myself. Yeah, I'm just obsessed with this kind of shit.
I do want to mention the fan that is next to the radiator that sits on the mast. That's not a thermofan, it's just a regular little, I don't know, portable electric fan.
Yeah. It's not even a big, there used to be a big box fan there, but somebody snagged that to use for something else. Mm-hmm. And never came back, so we found this somewhere. I think Kat wanted a fan this last summer, and so we got her one, and then it was just sitting out there, and so I was like, I'll grab that, and I'll put it here, and good enough.
Hey, this is T. Blankenship. Are you a fan of Pi? Where there's Pi at Permies.com. This Pi grants the user secret access. You also get free things like videos of Wheaton Labs, the ability to add 2 thumbs up to posts, and more. To get Pi, go to Permies.com/Pi to get the inside scoop of what Pi can do for you. Again, that is Permies.com/Pi.
So the design of the rocket mass heater is such that the stratification chamber, which is the barrel that you can see, that's meant to radiate a lot of heat. And so when you have a fan directed at it, it kind of pulls energy away from the radiant heat and and uses it more as forced convection. And so I find that to be an interesting change that you implement here. And so it seems to be more effective as to the desired need of this space, just to heat the space instead of like radiate and get instant heat. So that's one thing that I noticed that you do differently.
I think a big thing is that I wait until I go to put the second load of wood in, and then I turn that little fan on. And mostly what I'm thinking is that this way this system is designed now, when you get on to like a half hour of burn or so, I think that the amount of heat going out the roof is more than I would like. I would like to add some kind of juice box into this system. So I kind of feel like by activating the fan when you're 15 minutes in or so, it makes it so that more of the heat is taken off of the barrel, which also another thing is that the barrel is stainless steel, and stainless steel does not conduct heat nearly as well as mild steel. And so a lot of the heat's going to the mass, and I kind of feel like with the fan blowing on it, it helps to
shed the heat,
harvest more of the heat, and so it makes the system a little bit more efficient. I would prefer to modify the system so we don't use the fan at all. And I've got a buffet of things, but I kind of feel like that's not the conversation for today.
Sure.
I mean, I could easily fill a couple of hours talking about that, but today it's like, how do we optimize use? How do we be a better rocket mass heater user to get more out of it? Next item I have on my list is using smaller sticks versus bigger sticks. So with the bigger sticks, you'll get just as much heat out of the sticks, but it'll be spread out over like twice as long. But with smaller sticks, you'll get just as much heat out of the sticks, but it'll be much faster. So it'll get much hotter. So you'll have a much hotter burn. We use, like for example, when we want the rocket oven to cook pizzas at 800 degrees.
Toothpicks.
Yeah.
Toothpicks, just about the same diameter as your pinky finger. Yeah.
So we get a much hotter fire.
It's because you're maximizing the surface area to volume ratio of your fuel source.
Yeah, it's gonna rocket harder and just really, really haul, and which, you know, if you were in here thinking like, oh, it's so cold and I wanted to get warm really, really fast, then yeah, use small stuff. But I think mostly we're using the small stuff just so that the fire for the day can be over quickly. Whereas if I've got a meeting, I'll put the bigger pieces in. It still burns plenty hot to burn the smoke and the creosote, but it's going to take it, you know, more like 40 minutes rather than 15 minutes to get through that wood. And so better chance that if I've got an hour-long meeting that I'll come and find coals rather than find all the coals are gone. And so, all right. I got a note here. It says the fancy cover. What does that mean?
The cork?
That's the cork.
Oh, the cork. Oh, okay, that. All right. Yeah. Normally just 2 bricks over the top is plenty good, but I do think that cork really, I mean, it's got like, it's got some of that ribbon inside of it, the gasket material, and which helps the cork it even more. And I think that's
granted,
helps.
Bricks is more insulative than the metal cork. So
true.
Yes. But it doesn't offer a complete seal.
Right. And
like the cork does.
And usually we leave the bricks over it until the coals are entirely gone, and then we put the cork on it. And now it's not that hot. And so if any heat comes out, then it comes into our space. If it comes through that metal, that's fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think the big thing is to keep air from moving through the system and pulling our convective heat out of the room through and taking it out the roof. So don't start with sawdust. That was a Stephen note, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, so one of the things that a lot of people are tempted to do is use small bits of wood. This sort of falls into the category of what Alexandra was just talking about, where if you have more surface area versus the mass, when you've increased that ratio. The thing with using sawdust is if you put a pile of sawdust in there, what ends up happening is you burn the outer layer of sawdust, but then there's sawdust in the middle of that pile that is not even touched. There's no oxygen there, so it's not going to burn. So what you want to do is sprinkle sawdust on a fire that already exists, and then you'll have a better chance of having that sawdust used as a fuel. So if you're reduced to using sawdust as like a main fuel, have something burn really nice and hot to start with, and then sprinkle your sawdust on there. That's what I would suggest.
Yeah.
A pile of sawdust is not going to burn for you. It's not going to help you unless you want to keep poking it with a fire poker so that more of that sawdust on the inside of your pile is exposed.
I would say that you could use a little bit of sawdust as your magic fairy dust at the beginning when you're trying to start the fire.
Yeah, a little bit, not a pile.
Yeah.
Because, again, there's you need oxygen, and there's no oxygen because those sawdust bits are so packed together that there's no airflow like you would have in sticks or pieces of cardboard or paper.
Which is why I think with pellet stoves they take that sawdust and they make it into pellets. Now it'll burn provided that they can keep the airflow through the pellets just right. And so the pellet stove,
a little turner or like a
hopper.
Thank you. Yeah.
They have a little grate where the pellets are burned that has a bunch of air, like there's a fan literally blowing air on it.
That's right.
Yeah. And so
a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
That will probably fail at some point.
Right. So I agree. Like maybe a quarter cup of sawdust at a time. I wouldn't try to do more than a quarter, and sprinkled around, not in one blob.
Not a pile.
Yeah.
I just want to take a moment to mention that bark is very pithy, and normally you use bark for smoking, and so it's less ideal to use for a rocket. It's better used for mulch because it's antifungal.
I use when I'm burning bark, I try to not use more than 15% at a time, because it has that weird property where it kind of swells and plugs everything, and so, but it does burn a lot like cardboard or paper. It burns a little overly hot, and which is fine sometimes. And I find that, in fact, a lot of the shorties that I have, probably about a third of the shorties I have are bark chunks.
Only, okay, all right.
And then I'll throw a couple of bark chunks in there when the fire is like, oh, I want to throw something in there, but and it's like, yeah. So it's sometimes bark is better as mulch, and sometimes why not throw it in there? Yeah. So I don't know. Each artisan chooses what they want to do. Artisan's choice.
Artisan's choice. Oh.
I did not go through any effort of trying to get the bark off of any of the logs. If it's already on it, that's not a big deal. But for me, if I had a big piece of bark, I would rather use it as mulch instead of in the intake.
When I'm out there with the kindling cracker and I chop up wood, a lot of times the bark comes off. And then I bring the bark inside. Okay. And then I burn it all. And then if I want smaller chunks, I can just break that bark in half, and then there you go, throw in a smaller chunk. Done.
All right.
Next note I have is the drying rack above the mast. It's a very popular drying rack. It's got a pulley on it, so you lower it down and you put your laundry on, and then you lift it up near the ceiling. And I don't know.
I think I might have mentioned the idea of stacking functions. That's just a way we've been able to harvest more of that heat for a useful purpose, not just heating the space, but for helping us take care of errands or chores or whatever. We have drying racks for food above the kitchen table, and those are even a higher space as well. And you can dehydrate herbs or vegetables or whatever else is up there while you're trying to heat your building.
I guess I'm just trying to say, like, the great thing is the mass is throwing off heat 24 hours a day. And so you just, you have your laundry up there, and I don't know, it's pretty damn efficient at how quickly it dries your clothes on that rack above the mass. And I know I've seen people take our drying rack, which is back in the laundry room somewhere, and they'll set it up on the mass in addition. And I imagine that's even better because it's closer to the mass, and there's probably a lot more airflow right there. Speaking of the mass, some people sit on the mass all the time. Like some people, it's like that's just where they live their life, is on the mass. I think other people find it to be too warm on the mass. And so different strokes and stuff.
But if you're outside driving the tractor, you've had to plow snow in a blizzard, you come in, and that's exactly where you want to be. That's exactly where you want to be.
And you put your hands right on the mass. Yeah.
Yep.
So let's see. This is its 12th winter. It's doing great. This is a question for Alexandra. How many minutes per day of messing with it do you think you're doing? So it's like you might have an hour-long burn, but then like out of that hour, how many of that is minutes of actually messing with it?
I think I'm spending too much because I'm still getting used to it. I would say while it's running 10 to 15 minutes an hour for every hour.
Okay.
I'm spending either looking at it, messing with it unnecessarily, or something.
I would say that I think I do pretty good at using it. I mean, once in a while I'll forget and it's like, oh, damn. But for the most part, about on a day when I'm running the fire, 10 or 15 minutes of me actually fiddling with it. And so that's just a guess. So if I were to guess for an entire month of December, not a month of October where it's like, oh yeah, we had a few fires in October, but a month of December where it's the coldest month of the year here, I would say I would average 10 minutes per day throughout the month. That's my guess for my use of it.
I think then I'm going to change my estimate to 15 to 20. I think I have a lot more efficiency that I I can gain. Yeah.
You'll get better,
yeah.
and then but then you can see how you can eventually get it to be an average of 10 minutes per day.
Yeah.
Okay.
I feel like I've been coming at it from more of a nervous Nelly approach.
Yeah. Plus learning, watching it, observing it, and getting the hang of it, and deciding like what you're comfortable with.
Yeah.
Like if you're going to walk away, which by the way, when you walk away from the fire, one of the things you do is you leave the building. So that demonstrates that you, as an engineer, have developed a certain level of confidence in how the fire will go.
True. Yep.
And that it'll be safe.
Yeah.
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 So.
Without it, I'm not too concerned, and I have my kids here too, so I'm not concerned about safety issues there.
Ignoring the possibility of a creosote fire, because of course, basically a rocket mass heater domesticates the chimney fire. Just ignore that whole thing. When it comes to the general safety of children around a wood stove versus around a rocket mass heater, I'm going to speculate that a rocket mass heater is probably about 5 to 6 times safer. What would your numbers be?
I don't know if I have a guess there, but I could say that a rocket is safer. I don't have a factor to put on that.
I kind of feel like the amount of exposure to the actual fire is much less. The fire is far more contained. And on top of that, what fire is there is smaller. Mm-hmm. And so any kind of spark popping out of it or something like that, it's like there's just less of it for a long list of reasons.
Yeah, and I also think about all of the too hot to touch surfaces too.
Right. Which, some people complain about that, and I kind of think that and whenever somebody brings that up, like, oh, you can't have a hot surface anywhere around children, and it's like, oh, okay, so no hot water in your house, and no stove and no oven in your house. You're going to have to take those out because those get hot.
I think if there were a toddler here compared to a toddler interfacing with the wood stove at JR's wood stove would be more dangerous to me for a toddler versus this heater. Seems way safer.
Yeah. Let's go back to the minutes per day. So if I'm saying 10 minutes per day, then in a month that would be 300 minutes, right? So is that, my math says that's 5 hours. Is that correct? And I'm going to guess that for the month of December, if I were to pay for heat for this place, like natural gas or electric heat or something like that, it would be maybe $300 for the month of December. Mm-hmm. So if it's $300 and I spend a total of, did I say 5 hours?
5 hours.
So what is that, $60 an hour?
$60 an hour, yeah.
So by heating this building with a rocket mass heater, and the time it takes to do it each day, I'm basically getting $60 an hour to do it. So I don't know. Some people talk about, because I think that there is a strong mentality of the thermostat is like, oh, is it going to cost $300 and now things happen and now it's going to be $600 a month?
Yes.
I guess I have to pay it and I'll just have to go put more hours in at work in order to do it, and that's just how it is. And it's like, I get that, and that's perfectly reasonable, and that's, it makes sense, and I'm trying to come up with alternatives. So I kind of feel like somebody's got a worky job and they've got a thermostat. Maybe what they do is they set their thermostat to something like 60 maybe, and then when they want it to be warmer, they can fire up the rocket mass heater to be warmer than that for an evening or for the weekend or something like that, and it'll save them money and they'll make $60 an hour doing it. And it's also better for the environment, it's better for the all kinds of global stuff, but it's also easier on your pocketbook and stuff like that. But it's like, you don't have to do it.
I like that. I like the idea of rocket mass heaters being a supplemental form for most people for heat. That way you can put the time into it when you need, and then otherwise you have this, backup system. But I think it would be harder to have a rocket and operate it successfully if you are not at your house most of the day. But I'm sure you could make some adjustments, so maybe you're just firing it up in the evening or something. So I guess doing the opposite of what I'm doing. I'd have to think about that a little bit, how that would impact your routine.
Yeah, if you've got a worky job and it's going to be 10 minutes each evening, you could do it or choose to not do it.
I suppose if you have a dog at home, you have to be home every day anyway. I see what you're saying. I've decided to go hang out with my special friend and stay the night there. Right. And be negligent to your rocket, right? Yeah,
but that'll be fine too, because if you did it the night before,
sure,
chances are the house is still plenty warm, and if it's not, then your thermostat controlled heater will pop on.
Sure.
And keep it from getting too cold. So you'll be fine. I suppose
we can't address every single person's routine and lifestyle and insulated, space. So, I mean, there are a ton of variables, but it has been very, easy to use, just, not as easy as a thermostat. Yeah. But there was one aspect of operating the rocket that I really wanted to highlight or speak to more, and you mentioned it at the beginning with your previous engineer guest, where they stuffed the burn tunnel. And I've noticed for a lot of new people interacting with a rocket that there is a tendency to think that that's how it should perform, like you need to stuff it. And so I wonder if we could add some color as to why you don't want the burn tunnel to have a bottleneck or
I think the number one thing is I don't want sticks in the burn tunnel. The burn tunnel's not designed to be durable to sticks. It's a little too delicate. If you have a little bit of loose paper in there or even loose cardboard, that's fine. Coals that happen to wander in there is fine. If a stick kind of goes in there at an angle a little bit, then the bottom is fire brick. I think it'll be fine. But to have people stuffing sticks in there and like strong arming them in there, that's not good. That place is too delicate for that.
Yeah, I think of Ianto Evans' 3 T's and how so it's time, temperature, and turbulence. And
you've just taken out some of the turbulence.
Right, exactly. And so the reason why rockets perform as efficiently as they do is because there are 90-degree bends that introduce opportunities for turbulence, for mixing of your fire triangle, your heat, your fuel, your air, right? So you need to be able to optimize your fire triangle, and if you block that burn tunnel, then you're minimizing the amount of turbulence, the amount of mixing of your gases. And so that's how I like to describe it to people who...
So so when the sticks are vertical and the bottom of the sticks are burning, the flame goes sideways for a little more than a foot. And then it has that sharp right angle to go up the riser. And at that point, the gases get mixed a lot, and so by the time you get there, you've already burned a fair bit of the smoke because the fire is so hot. But now we're going to burn more of the smoke, whatever the smoke is we haven't gotten to yet, because of the mixing action that happens. But if your sticks are laying in there, you don't get that, that opportunity to burn and then stir.
Yeah. As a visual, I tell people to think of a waterfall. It hits the, as soon as it goes off the waterfall, there's mixing, and it doesn't take very long for that flow to turn laminar, to be straight. And there's less mixing if it's laminar or straight. And so now you want to introduce more turbulence to just ensure that there's more mixing. So keeping the burn tunnel clear, or as clear as possible, improves the operation of your system.
That is true. That is true. And you're going to get a more efficient burn. It'll be a cleaner burn, and you'll get more heat out of it. Yeah, I agree. Okay, when it comes to operating this rocket mass heater, I kind of feel like we've covered a lot. Any last minute bits and bobs to add in?
Not in terms of operating this one, no.
Yeah, as is, because I want to make modifications to it, but that's another podcast for another day. I don't know. I feel like it has been really easy to operate, and it takes very little time, and boy, it pumps out the heat. And the amount of heat that we get for little bits of wood is phenomenal, and it can only burn little bits of wood at a time. You can't possibly burn a lot of wood at once, and yet, and when you start talking about a batch box, it's kind of like that would be. I think having a batch box right here might possibly be really dumb, because if you were to load up the batch box and run that, it would get way too hot in here. And so,
Alexandra, you brought up the idea of a 30,000 square foot home, batch box in there. That would probably solve a lot of those problems.
So, I mean, and I think we need to re-explore the whole concept of the batch box sometime soon. But
I agree with Stephen's assessment. And actually, I was just reached out to by someone looking for some advice, and they have a 2,500 square foot home, and I recommended a batch box system for that amount of square footage.
Okay. I've got a lot to say about this, but we've gone so long.
Podcast.
For some other podcast. For some other time.
I'm glad we wrapped this up in 15 minutes.
Yeah. We thought this would be a 15-minute podcast. We've gone over an hour and a half.
I got things to do, Paul.
Yeah, it's my fault.
It's my fault. Give me my attention.
Yeah. Well, I don't know where they go. They're the deal. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. I think this is good. If you like this sort of thing, come on out to the forums at permaculture.com, where we talk about
the Fisher Price rocket mass heater,
homesteading, and permaculture
all the time.
Hi, this is Mark. There are a lot of reasons to get angry these days, but I prefer to focus on the positive things that we each can do to make this world a better place. The book, Building a Better World in Your Backyard, Instead of Being Angry at Bad Guys, is a great resource for just that. Instead of throwing my arms up in frustration at governments or big corporations, there's a list of ideas that we each can tackle to affect change. Information about this book and other resources can be found at Permies.com.